Well, we're going to get into Adele Bigtree today. The American Academy of Pediatrics is at it again in terms of getting in the way of shared decision-making on behalf of parents, pediatricians, and their children. You all know Adele. He's been here many times, and his recent movie he produced, An Inconvenient Study. He's also CEO of Informed Consent Action Network. And then Emily Jashinsky. She is a journalist and cultural commentator, host of After Party with Emily, and the Megyn Kelly Wrap-Up Show. She's co-host of Breaking Point. She does a lot out there, and we're going to talk with both of them about some of the breaking news around the Southern Poverty Law Center. A lot to discuss. Stay with us. Be right back.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
You can follow Del on X at Del Bigtree. He's one of those names you don't have to spell out. I guess I should say DEL, single L, Bigtree. And aninconvenientstudy.com is where you can learn more about the film. Del, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Drew. It's good to be here.
So I think I just saw you on a post from today talking about yet another judgment interfering with the ability of parents to make informed decisions, or pediatricians to discuss with parents informed and risk-reward concerns about things like vaccines. Tell me about that.
Well, you had the American Academy of Pediatrics brought a lawsuit against Robert Kennedy Jr. and as HHS Secretary at HHS. They attempted to roll back the reduction in vaccines. He had moved us over to a schedule much more similar to Denmark and Germany. So reducing a 54-shot regimen down to 26 total injections, which I think was a great step. And by the way, didn't erase those other vaccines, essentially just said those should be shared decision-making. Those should be decisions between you and your doctor. Things like hepatitis B on day one of birth. If you're not hepatitis B positive, you should have a conversation about that. American Academy of Pediatrics, brought this case, and the judge really in an incredible decision, made an activist, I think, decision in saying that the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, this is that committee that, gives their advice and thoughts inside of the CDC. They're an outside group of professionals. The judge said that since Robert Kennedy Jr. hadn't asked that advisory committee to weigh in on this reduction schedule, that it therefore wasn't to be adhered to, and abolish that change in vaccinations. Ironically, there's nothing binding about the ACIP committee giving their advice on anything. So how it was that skipping the advisory committee would matter if they have no binding decision-making powers anyway, the whole thing's sort of ridiculous. But going a step further, he went and said that there wasn't enough balance or fairness in Robert Kennedy Jr.'s advisory committee, and abolished that, which is really incredible. So the judge is saying that he has more power to decide who should be in the advisory committee than the HHS secretary himself. And ironically, Bobby Kennedy went in and tried to get rid of all of the pharma shills. He's trying to get rid of the corporate capture of that committee. And the judge is essentially saying, no, we liked it the way it was. It should only be pharmaceutical shills that make money from vaccines, weighing in on vaccines. I just want to point out, Drew, that my nonprofit submitted a letter to Robert Kennedy Jr. and let him know after that decision, you know what? You have 7 days where you can redesign and change the charter of the ACIP committee, and you should broaden it to not just be vaccine shills, but also people that investigate vaccine injury, also discussing, how to design vaccines in a safer way. And so broaden that membership, and he did do that. So in many ways, he's turned lemons into lemonade. But really, I think you made the point, which is if the American Academy of Pediatrics, it's a trade organization for pediatricians. And what Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing is giving more power to the pediatricians, saying this should be a conversation. Vaccines should be a conversation between a pediatrician and their patient, not a bureaucracy that tells the pediatricians what they should do. And amazingly, American Academy of Pediatrics wants to go back to bureaucrats making pharmaceutical decisions for the patients and not allowing pediatricians into that conversation. I think it shows you exactly what the American Academy of Pediatrics really is, which is a shell organization for the pharmaceutical industry. It's not representing doctors and trusting in doctors and their relationships with patients.
Which is weird because the professional societies, American College of Physicians, this is the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is kind of I guess that's not really the same thing as some of these professional subspecialty groups, but they usually do a good job of representing physician interests. I wonder what it is about the leadership over there that has them advocating for things like this. It's sort of uncanny. The only thing I can think of is, isn't it not the case that when they come off the mandatory so-called schedule, they lose some of their liability coverage?
There's a couple, it puts them on the road to being liable. It's not a direct result. You have to make changes then to, I think the table of injuries, like how you go about it. There's a few more steps that would have to take place that Robert Kennedy Jr. said he wouldn't go in that direction. But I think there is a concern that it could move towards liability back on those products, which again, I think is a really, shocking concern that you do not think that this product would stand up if it had its own liability. It's the only product like it in America. Can you imagine how many entrepreneurs would love to be protected from any liability from their product? It is what is allowing such a lack of proper safety studies, which my nonprofit's done a really good job of proving. No proper salient placebo trials prior to licensure of any of the childhood vaccines. But again, they want that liability protection. They're afraid of losing it. And this is all a part of, I think, this conversation that we should be having as citizens in this country. Do we trust products that have no liability protection? That have no liability.
And I'm also curious about the fact that your organization was able to uncover this ability to change the charter. Why didn't HHS know about that?
I worked with Bobby. I was a director of communications as he was running for president. In many ways, we joke, we were building the plane as we were flying it. It kept changing. We started as Democrats, then we changed over to being independents. And of course, he joined President Trump. I think Bobby has been trying to get a grasp of exactly what is going on in his life and where he's going. But as he lands at HHS secretary, there's so much going on there. There's so much I think he's trying to do. He's doing an incredible job, by the way, reducing chemical dyes in children's food, getting lead and arsenic out of baby food. Great investigations now that are starting into microplastics and all the issues we're seeing from that. So all of these things, changing the food pyramid, working to get school lunch programs, not serving our children, over processed food. So in all of that, I'm not sure if he didn't know he had an opportunity to charter, but we want to point out you're running out of time. You have about 7 days. You may want to get on this. He's got a lot on his plate.
Did you know about that?
Very few people on his side inside of there. Yeah.
Were you preloaded with that information? Did you know that? Or did your group just dig in quickly and find it?
We dug in as soon as we saw this, result, and especially since it looked like the Trump administration was signaling that they weren't going to appeal this decision. Part of it because, Robert Kennedy Jr. Led on that he wanted to get back to work and reconstitute this committee instead of getting stuck into what would have probably been, a trip to an appellate court that wouldn't be friendly to finally arrive at a Supreme Court that would be friendly. And instead, let's get back to work. So while we were looking at that, we said, well, hold on a second. Where is this judge off base? Was he right? Could we change that? And that's where we discovered, we were right inside of a timeline to make changes.
Interesting. And you may not know the answer to this, but since you brought up being on the inside over there with Bobby and his work at the HHS, what happened to Vinay Prasad? That was, I was so hopeful for him. He's such a brilliant guy. Is it just government just too much, too crazy for him?
I really don't know. Of course, we know that, he had a really wild ride. They got rid of him. There was some tensions. He was released. And then I believe it was Dr. Makari brought him back. And then I never did hear what the final blow was, whether it was on his side or on the government side. I think usually you have to assume that anyone going into those positions knows it's going to be a hard ride. I have a hard time believing he decided to leave on his own accord. He was dedicated to the mission. Yeah. I don't think he expected it to be easy, but I don't know what he ran into there. There was certainly, I think one of the things as I'm watching it that's very complicated is all the discussions around the mRNA vaccine technology, which Donald Trump seems to have a soft spot for, but really no one else in science and medicine. It's got such a horrific track record across the world. We see the rise of myocarditis, pericarditis, which is admitted to. Real questions on the ability, is it lending to what we're hearing in these turbo cancer issues? And it's the one product that it appears that Robert Kennedy Jr. and those around him can't really touch. We saw Donald Trump inject himself one relatively recently, which just shows you how complicated politics are. I think Donald Trump wants Bobby to take a deep look at vaccines, especially the childhood schedule. But I think it appears to me he wants him to stay away from the COVID vaccine, which ironically is what brought you into this conversation, I think, in many ways, and woke up many doctors, the idea that these things are not properly safety tested. So, Bobby, I wouldn't want his job. I wouldn't want to be there, but I think he's doing a great job under the circumstances.
But I keep telling people what they should tell Trump is, you're right, President Trump. This was an extraordinary effort. It was a monumental scientific, whatever superlative word he might want to use. It was this incredible feat that was able to be accomplished in such a short period of time. Wonderful job, Mr. President. But the mandates have completely wiped away that extraordinary effort. That the mandates, people should just take aim at the mandates as being the problem, and being the fact that in the previous administration is diminishing the historical impact of what they were able to do. I think he would respond to that, if I understand him. And it's true, the mandates, and you said what brought me into this conversation, it is the mandates. The fact that they did not have the bioethical standing. That was Missouri versus Biden. They did not have the standing to do that. And we can go round and around whether the vaccine itself is a good idea, but the mandates clearly were the problem.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it should be made to him. And those mandates force people that were at almost zero risk. So you really change the risk-reward profile of that.
Exactly.
I would add one thing I would like to say to him, too, is the vaccine that you approved and warp-speeded onto the market is not what hit the market. We now know that the entire manufacturing process that was used for the trials, they could not make enough. And so they changed that manufacturing process so no one received the vaccine that Donald Trump's warp speed actually developed. And I think there needs to be a deeper conversation and investigation into that.
Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's going to sort of be the majority of my program today, because I hope everybody is sort of astonished by that finding. And yet, Emily, who I'm going to talk to in a few minutes, and PragerU had pointed this out years ago. I guess without sort of the teeth of an investigation, I would have sort of gone, I'm not so sure. It's not too much. Conspiracy theory, too much. But lo and behold, this is what's been happening.
Yeah, in fact, they're sort of admitting to it, right? And using excuses like, we're just doing what government agencies doing. We were funding, infiltrating these groups and having our own sort of, representatives inside of these hate groups, which I don't think anyone likes that our government does that, right? I think we all look at controlled opposition. I've been hearing this story since my parents talking about marching in the 1960s in the Chicago 7 and infiltrated by CIA actors that then were some of the ones that were the bad actors that made groups go off of, the correct path when they were marching or doing some of the questions I don't really want to get into, some some of the issues around the White House and the election, but there's questions on actors that are put in there. But I run a nonprofit. We have to be really careful on what we're doing, especially I think what's so important is that people are donating money thinking you're helping the poor, the Southern Poverty Law Center, that you're trying to help, equal the playing field, get over, end racism and, give people a leg up and make sure that, everyone is well represented. Nowhere in there was someone being told that we are going to give hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to actual members of the Ku Klux Klan. And hopefully they'll give us some information. You really wonder if they said that to a sponsor. I can't imagine saying something like that to any of the sponsors in the work that I do that would have been approved. So it's a real misrepresentation of what's going on. And God knows what that money ended up being used for. And if the accusations proved to be true, that they were funding these groups to bring events and cause unrest and problems so that they could jump in and look like the saviors, it's really an ugly look. It's a bad look.
Yeah. And Caleb, you said there was some story, allegation about a group, was it the Proud Boys, being muscled by someone who's being paid by the SPLC.
Yes, I actually saw
to Charlottesville.
There were people, guys, it may have, if I remember correctly, he may have even been one of the founders of the Proud Boys, who was saying, wait, he put the pieces together from this indictment and he was able to connect it to, wait, I think this is the guy that was constantly calling our phones saying, you got to come to Charlottesville, you got to come here, you got to be here on this date, so much that we were like basically going to block his number because he was annoying them so much. And so all these people are putting the pieces together and thinking, wait, were they trying to trap us too? Like this whole thing, was it a big trap? That's what it looks like now.
Oh, yes, of course it was. And it kind of looked like it from afar too. It was like, well, this looks organized. This looks like somebody's doing this. And then it became a centerpiece politically and a hoax. They used it was a hoax on a hoax on a hoax, which is just wild. It's just so many. I am Alice in Wonderland, Del. Honest to God, I'm all the way through the Looking Glass. I'm following down the White Rabbit's hole. And I'm looking around. I don't recognize the world I'm in. I had no idea all this was going on, and whether it's the fraud, the and all of it is misuse of good people's money. All of it.
Yeah.
Either the people of the United States or the people who are donating, as you said, to try to combat poverty, whatever it is, or hate and racism. It's incredible.
It really is. I mean, I guess I remember seeing somebody once say money finds a way. And I think in all of this, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I am sure the Southern Poverty Law Center started out with good intentions, but you get bad actors, you get people out over the tips of the skis. They want more action. They're thriving to create more news, more media, because we're living in a world, I always think about Spinal Tap, that has just been turned up to 11. Mm. And if you can't make that much noise, you're not seen. You can't raise money. You need action. And so you find, I think in these situations, people start doing things that are completely unethical and lose all sight of their mission. We see it with politicians every single day that, don't end up following through on any of the things that they promised. You see them compromising that at a certain point. They're doing nothing that they, had intended to do while they were there. I have a lawsuit right now. We've been fighting to bring back a religious exemption from vaccines in West Virginia. We won at the state level, and then in court, and now it's being appealed. And guess what lawyers are in? The ACLU is fighting us on this issue. All we're trying to say is a child and a parent should be able to have the right to choose whether to vaccinate or not. That should be a right. That should be a First Amendment right. It's a religious right. The ACLU is there to fight for the rights of all individuals, but at this point, it's fighting us. So there's 20 lawyers, like 4 or 5 different groups trying to stop our lawsuit to simply bring back the recognition that people have a right to decide when and how to vaccinate their children. And ACLU, another nonprofit supposed to be there for the rights of people, is doing the exact opposite right now in this case we're dealing with. So we're seeing lots of this all over the place.
Del, I want to take a little break. We've got a call for you when I get back here from, let me find her name. Melanie. It is Melanie. And I want to talk a little bit more of what you just said about people clamoring to get attention. I want to talk about media's role in all this, because when I think about that, that is one of the more egregious aspects of this story of what has happened here. And the media was an enthusiastic participant in all this. And you come from media, I'm curious, and media production, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are. More Del Bigtree right after this. Something our audience knows well is that what's good for our health can also be good for the environment. Paleo Valley makes snacks, drinks, oils, and more that are nutrient-dense, delicious, and impeccably sourced. Co-founder Autumn Smith champions regenerative farming. It's a level beyond organic.
When you go to the grocery store, 90% of the animal products you're going to buy are from factory farms. And we obviously know factory farms work against nature. They work against animal health and in many ways against human health. Regenerative farms work on taking the landscape or the ecosystem from a degraded state, which the environment right now needs a lot of rehabilitation, and we have lower nutrient levels in our soil than ever before. We found that animal products from regenerative systems have nutritional benefits above and beyond other types of animal products.
Paleo Valley's beef sticks and bone broth protein powder are my favorites, and they come from regenerative farms. And the sticks also come in pasture-raised chicken as well.
We actually just went and visited one of our chicken farmers, and we work with a lot of co-ops and people all over the country.
We are such fans of Autumn, her work, and her extraordinary small business. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for a 15% discount on your first order, or get 20% off when you subscribe.
Hey, Dr. Drew here, and we are interested in health and longevity, and the longevity nutrient is Fatty 15, discovered amazingly by a veterinarian who was responsible for the Navy's fleet of dolphins. Turns out dolphins are healthier when they have adequate amounts of pentadecanoic acid, which is C15. It also, for us, it helps humans as well, reduces the oxidative stress on our cell membranes, which is part of the aging process called ferroptosis. So, she takes it, I take it, whole family takes it. And if you'd like some, go to drdrew.com/Fatty15 for yours. There are discounts there.
Oh my God, look, Drew, it's a dolphin. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Dr. Drew here, and even when we travel, we bring the new convenient fatty gummies. They're delicious, and they are portable, and they're great. And remember, this is a longevity ingredient. It fights against the oxidative stress on our cell membranes. We call that process ferroptosis, discovered in dolphin research by Dr. Van Watson. And I'm taking this every day, even when I travel. It's Fatty 15.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
I want to quickly tell you about our friends at Native Path. Creatine, strength, muscle energy, brain health. I take creatine every day. And most people still think of creatine as something, say, bodybuilders use, but it plays a critical role in how our body produces energy, especially as we age. Creatine is a naturally occurring compound in your body. The body relies on it to generate quick energy at the cellular level, particularly for your muscles and your brain, and I use it for both. But those natural creatine stores decline as we age, and it gets difficult to get optimal levels through diet alone. That matters because creatine plays a key role in maintaining muscle strength, supporting energy levels, and even helping with memory and cognitive functioning. That is where Native Path comes in. Native Path creatine is a clean, high-quality creatine monohydrate designed for everyday use. And it's not just for athletes. It's all you have to do is mix it into water or coffee. Thousands of customers report increased strength, better workout performance, and even improved energy, possibly more cognition, better ability to get through their daily activities. Here's what I want you to do. Take advantage of this 56% off bundle by going to Get Native Creatine. GetNativeCreatine.com/Drew. Try it risk-free with a Native Path 365-day money-back guarantee. Again, that is GetNativeCreatine.com/Drew. I do believe creatine is a very important supplement for all of us. I take it every day, and you should consider it as well. Del Bigtree, follow him on X, Del Bigtree, and also Inconvenient and InconvenientStudy.com. Del, we haven't talked much about the movie this time. Is there any update for us before we go to the phone?
Just, I'm about to go on an international tour, really, with it. Most of May and June, I'm going to France. I'm going to Poland. I'm going to Japan, possibly Australia, New Zealand. All wanting to see the film and discuss this study at the heart of it. So it's been really great at opening up this conversation. So I'm really happy with the results of that.
Are you going to see that French infectious disease doctor while you're there? I forget his name.
Didier Raoult, it's a really good idea. It'd be great to drop in on him. Great guy, super interesting. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if time for that. They
still bring him out. They still trot him out, let him give his point of view, and he is what shall I say? He's will have none of it. He's very clear about his thoughts, and he's a substantial guy. You know, he really is an interesting dude.
I think he's named like 67 germs or something like that. Like he's got like, he is a real international ID figure. And the fact that the people they chose to marginalize during this whole episode was what caused me to do this show. Because I thought, I want to talk to these people. They must have something to say. Melanie, I hear you there. Go right ahead.
Melanie? Can you hear me?
Gotcha. Turn
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey there. Turn your sound down. I think it's confusing you.
Yeah.
Just we'll talk to you on the phone here. Hey there. You're on with Del Bigtree.
Can you hear me now?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Hi, Melanie.
Yep, we got you.
Hi, I'm calling from Rhode Island. I just want to say thank you for educating everybody on the truth about vaccines.
You're welcome.
And I just want to say, the mRNA technology, Big Pharma is never going to go away. Our government is never going to stop Big Pharma. It's a money-making industry. People need to learn about the natural immune system and the importance of decent gut health. And just keep spreading the good work.
Yep, I agree completely. Look, my nonprofit is not called Eradicate Vaccines Action Network. It's Informed Consent Action Network. I am just simply trying to make sure that we all have the right to choose. There's great advancements in medicine. Pharmaceutical industry has its place. Every single human being is a different body. There's no such thing as a one size fits all. We all have different, risk reward profiles that should be examined. We're at the point now, I think, Dr. Drew, you back this up, concierge medicine and really getting focused specifically with each individual to fulfill the Hippocratic oath, which is the only patient a doctor is supposed to care about is the one directly in front of them. We are really, making a mess of things when we say we know that vaccines are going to injure and maim some people, but it's for the greater good of the larger population of people to achieve herd immunity. This really destroys the Hippocratic Oath. We're not supposed to think like that. And then, of course, in the work that I know Robert Kennedy Jr. has done and that I've done, I don't think these injuries are as rare as everybody thinks. And we need more really robust science to be done now. That's at the heart of an inconvenient study and what's going on there. But I do think we, as people, as citizens, we can't wait for the government. We can't believe Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to change this for us. And really what we should be using this moment to say, I'm not being censored, I'm allowed to speak out on issues that we couldn't during COVID, that we couldn't during the last administration. But government is never going to be our answer for health. Health is a journey each person should be involved with themselves. I really am trying to promote a healthcare system which involves nutrition, which involves exercise. Also, there's lots of holistic modalities of chiropractic and things that people can use. Drugs will have their place, but we shouldn't be starting there. And I think that that's the problem with a lot of medicine right now. It is just going to knee-jerk reaction to start us on a drug regimen that just increases over time. And I don't really think defines health. So we should be in a healthcare system, not a sick care system. I think we have a sick care system right now. So a lot of adjustment needs to be made, but it takes personal responsibility to get there.
Del, something I was not aware of, but because of the transgressions of the COVID adventure, I have come to understand that the public health practitioners, the public health community, has no such mandate to do no harm. They specifically don't have that and don't practice that, which is shocking to me. The absolute mandate in general medicine is to co-create the decision with the patient in front of you and make the best decision for that individual and do no harm. They have none of that in public health. And that fact needs to be legislated. It needs to be reined in somehow, because that is the grounds for excess. Then you just start sacrificing people just because I think it's a good idea. This is horrible. This is totalitarianism. Is how this kind of thing gets going. And the fact that they can then have emergency powers to take away our basic civil liberties, also egregious, needs to be reined in. Are you guys working on anything to do that?
To rein in that? Well, I mean, first of all, it's the first I've ever heard that. You're starting me on a new investigation. I did not recognize that public health officials are, adhering to Hippocratic oath. So I think that's a really great point. As I've said, I'm really dedicated to informed consent, which is the first rule of the Nuremberg Code. But what people really need to recognize is that we have got to get back in America to a place where we are making our own decisions when it comes medically, because I do believe health really is what is going to be used to rob us of sovereignty. We are seeing this around the world. We're really the only nation in the world that is not moving closer and closer to vaccine tracking systems, to health tracking systems, to social credit scores, to censoring us when we speak out against the government. All of these things are things that I think we've gotten a little bit lazy in America and just never thought we would lose those rights. COVID should have shaken that confidence out of us and said, wait a minute, I want to get back to a nation that can never do that again. We've had some great legal wins. You pointed that out. Our judicial system has really come out against much of what the Biden administration did to try and take away our rights. So I think it'll be harder for them to pull off a pandemic again. But look, at Silicon Valley has not stopped investing in, health biometric tracking systems. The pharmaceutical industry is pushing mRNA. They want to be able to vaccinate us for every bacteria and virus on Earth. And if they can get to your government officials and mandate it, they never have to pay for advertising. They never have to pay for legal cases. So, I mean, it's the perfect product. And add to that, it's a product that you don't give to the tiny percentage of people that are maybe susceptible or injured. If you look at COVID, it was like, I think, a 0.35% final death rate. So you can make a drug for 0.35% of people, but vaccines is for everyone else to protect the 0.35%. So 99.7% of us have to take a product to protect the ones that are at risk. The entire vaccine program puts this thing on its head to not have liability, to see them ramping these things up, and then to say that we don't have a right to choose what goes into the bodies of our children, that we don't have a right to choose what's injected to us. I really think it's the tip of the spear. If you want to stand up for freedom and you want to make sure that we hold on to that value, controlling your own health, controlling as a parent the health of your children is the greatest duty we have. And if that is taken away from us and handled by government agencies, God knows what other rights we will lose. And, what a slippery slope that's on. We've got AI technologies that are now going to get involved, which could be of great benefit. But again, we should have the right to choose if AI is going to monitor all of our data and, all of our facial recognition, our health data, what's happening inside of our bodies. We're, I keep saying, Dr. Drew, we're in the prequel to virtually every dystopian novel we ever read. It just never told us how they got there. This is it. Let's make sure we don't end up, 1984 Brave New World, Fahrenheit, 451.
Well, what's weird is loss of bodily integrity is usually towards the end of the story, not in the prequel. It's so weird that people are not completely blown away by what had happened there, but some people are, thank goodness. I guess people are waking up to it. Hey, before I let you go, I wanted to have this conversation about raw milk. We've got a video of is she a congresswoman or a senator going berserko on RFK on the topic of raw milk, and you had a pretty interesting rejoinder, but let's take a look at the video really quick first.
If I were the head of HHS, I would, by God, say, don't take raw milk. It is dangerous to your health. And if you can't say that, well, maybe there's some other conclusions that can be drawn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Letlow.
Oh, we're not going to see the RFK response? So she's going off on raw milk, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that basically what she's doing? Okay.
Yeah, totally.
And
it was
again, I've had a conversation with people over the years about the risk reward. If people want to drink something with some risk associated with it, this country wants to get involved with that. What was your response?
Well, look, first of all, when you watch these hearings, it's a really bad look. I think for America to watch literally half of the representatives of the nation just vomiting on Robert Kennedy Jr. for hours. It's hard to watch. It's disgusting. It's not diplomacy. And how about let the guy speak? I mean, she interrupts him. Some of these are good questions. Let the man answer. They don't answer. We now live in a political system where everyone's just trying to hunt for that soundbite that will make them viral on social media. It's all, it's just tearing our politics apart. But the argument I would want to make, first of all, she mentions, I think, like 9 deaths or something from raw milk. I looked it up. I couldn't find any deaths. In 2025, 0 deaths. The last I checked, there was like maybe 3 deaths in the 20 years between 98 and 2018, which means people are, what we got to get used to is the pharmaceutical industry, our government tries to make us, personalize incredibly rare risks. And so I think we should bring up her purple hair. I mean, I looked up hair dye, and there's a really important study done in 2025, if we want to get down to making things, personalizing them, that found a 9% increased risk of breast cancer, which can lead to death if you are, dyeing your hair on a regular basis. It's increased almost, like 60% increase amongst African Americans compared to white women that use hair dye and straighteners. Now, look, I'm not trying to make people afraid of hair dye. What I'm saying is Robert Kennedy Jr. could have said, you are putting people at risk by dyeing your hair, and I'm not talking about the dangers of hair dye. It's about the same risk of raw milk. And let me make this clear. I got 4 gallons of raw milk in the refrigerator myself. I have a local farmer. I'm glad I'm allowed to drink that milk here in Texas. And I just want to talk about the health benefits. People think this is crazy. Those of us that drink raw milk want the bacteria in the milk, believe it or not. We believe that our gut biome is made stronger by having a more diverse connection with the biome of the milk, with the biome of the food. A lot of people eat raw steak for this reason. Sure, there's risks. You should know where you're getting it from. But again, most of us that are going through this know what risk we're taking on. And there's real data on the health benefits. When we started boiling our milk to pasteurize it, we've taken away really many of the health benefits, which is so good in giving you a strong, powerful gut biome, which is why all of these other autoimmune diseases, when we start looking at where they're coming from, more and more research is showing it's in our leaky gut and not having a strong digestive system. We want good bacteria in our stomach, and raw milk is one of the best ways to get it, as far as I'm concerned. Do your own research. I would never tell anyone to vaccinate or not. You decide what you want to do. But again, it should be your choice.
Yep. And to be fair to the people that are raising issues around raw milk, I think they're worried about brucellosis, which is very rare. But I think it's primarily goats that had that, if I remember right. But again, it's not and by the way, a treatable condition these days, but whatever. Let's just finish up on media, because you mentioned how these Congress people, congressional officials are searching for their moment to go viral. Yeah. Media has been so much the problem of both the SPLC, the COVID misadventures. I mean, so many things were picked up by the media and championed as either factual or life-saving or, life-endangering if you dared to take issue with it. What is wrong with our media? I mean, it's not the people reading the prompter, it's the people producing the news. What is going on there?
Well, I think we have to look at the funding to begin with. So much of the funding is compromising what we think is news. I've said this, I think, every time I've come on your show. If you look at it, between 50 to 70% of all advertising on your television is coming from the pharmaceutical industry. We also, like I said, we're turned up to 11. This shock jocking, clickbaity material. All of our news is doing it. And so it's sensationalized. It knows we want to hate Donald Trump. We want to hate Republicans. Republicans want to hate Democrats. And instead, I think, when you look at polls, I think it's something like a 45%-ish of America, which is the largest party in America, is actually undecided or independent. So the greater body of politics now is in the middle, and no one is speaking to us. No one is speaking to that reasonable center position, because I guess they think it just doesn't sell. But if you look at COVID, the 95% effective at stopping transmission was not true. No one investigated it. No one questioned. Not a single person ever asked Tony Fauci, where is the science behind wearing a mask? Isn't the particle for the coronavirus too small for the mask to stop? Never heard that question. Really important question. Where does social distancing come from? Isn't it eventually I'm going to come out of my house and I'm going to run into this thing? So what are we really gaining here? Is it true that standing I have to wear a mask, but sitting I don't? I mean, all of our media took part in one of the greatest IQ tests the world has ever seen, and it keeps going on. They keep getting these things wrong. They still won't join me. I say to every journalist, look, you have been saying it's misinformation that we did not have a placebo-based trial in any of the childhood vaccines. You've been calling that misinformation for 10 years. Now you've never produced a placebo-based trial. So now they're trying to debate with me, well, what is a placebo? What about adjuvanted placebos? They have aluminum in it. It's like, that's not a placebo. It has a biological, biochemical effect. So we're, at least it's moving, but you would think reporters would say, wait a minute, we never did a safety study on a product that we're forcing into children for them to go to school. Right. Let me do an investigation on that. We just have lost all of that, questioning. And I always joke this. In today's media, Woodward and Bernstein would just call up Richard Nixon and say, did you tap the Watergate bones? I did not. The experts have come forward. They didn't do it. This is not a story. It's over. That is not journalism. And that seems to be the world that we live in right now. We need evidence for what's being said.
They wouldn't even call the president. They would call some junior official in the press office. Hey, did he steal something? Oh no. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks.
No.
Thanks. Yeah. Not really. Yeah.
The experts say.
Oh my God. Well, Del, listen. I can't. It's so disturbing to me that this whole thing was, again, it get revivifies in my mind every once in a while when I talk to people like you, and it's just like, oh, but so many other things are coming to light about the extraordinary misbehavior of our government and some of these NGOs, whether it's fraud, whether it's Southern Poverty Law Center, just so many topics that are just mind-boggling, truly. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the movie. Where do you want people to find you?
Definitely go and check out an inconvenientstudy.com. We're over 100 million views worldwide. The movie is really blowing up. It's free. You can watch it there. You can watch my weekly talk show at thehighwire.com and all my socials at Del Bigtree. It's I think new media, I think what you're doing, Drew, I think that, these voices changed an election. They didn't get away with it. All of the propaganda didn't work. They hated on Bobby Kennedy. They hated on President Trump, and still they got elected, and they're doing some great things. So we've got to stay hopeful. And I think we also have to recognize that just because our television is still lying to us, this whole world of media now exists because of the internet. It's a fantastic time for media, and there are voices that really are doing that work. You're one of them, and I want to thank you for once again inviting me to be a part of this show. You're top-notch, man, and you've never given in to the propaganda pressure, and I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you being here with us. Thanks, Del.
Take care.
God bless.
And coming up next, we're going to go back into the SPLC with Emily Jashinsky, journalist, cultural commentator, host of After Party with Emily Jashinsky and the Megyn Kelly Wrap-Up Show, co-host of Breaking Points, and a columnist at Unheard. You can find more on her Substack, Emily Jashinsky, Jashinsky, and Emily Jashinsky on X, and After Party Emily also on X. So, right back with Emily right after this. More of our audience is taking health and wellness into their own hands, and they're doing it with The Wellness Company. For a discount on the best-selling products and everything on their website, for that matter, go to drdrew.com/TWC. The medical emergency kits are among the most popular items. There are 8 different kits, each depending on your individual needs. Inside, you'll find antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, first aid, anti-nauseal, skin treatments, and a kids kit with EpiPen and one for travel. The advantage to having an emergency kit in the house is immediacy. You don't have to run to the urgent care and spend a ton of money for all that infrastructure, or wait for the pharmacy to open, or try to find a doctor. And then there's Ultimate Spike Detox Supplement with nattokinase, turmeric, and bromelain. It has helped the vaccine injured. And anyone who is concerned about cardiovascular issues caused by lingering spike from the virus or the shots, the Ultimate Spike Detox is for you. One of TWC's top sellers is a topical ivermectin cream. It treats inflammation of the skin, issues like rosacea. The Wellness Company is always innovating. So go to drdrew.com/TWC to see what they have to offer and get a 10% discount there. Well, perhaps you remember the Flint, Michigan fiasco, and that taught us that the government's reporting on water safety is not worth very much. And Flint was not a one-off. There's problems all over the place. That is why you should consider Cove Pure, purify your water. And there are still millions of lead service lines carrying water into American homes. Many of them were installed decades ago, before maybe even your parents were born. And here's what the government does not tell you. The testing method that they utilize to check for lead is specifically designed to collect the least contaminated sample, not the worst. EPA scientists have confirmed this. The most recent federal data shows that water systems serving over 250 million Americans detected lead, and that was between 2021 and 2024. And lead can be a problem if it's detectable, particularly you wouldn't know it, has no taste, no smell, doesn't change the color of your water. And there are really no safe levels of exposure. Even low levels have been linked to, particularly in developing brains, brain damage, bone marrow dysfunction, long-term developmental issues. Cove Pure comes in right there. The system is certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. This includes lead, PFAS, fluoride, and even pharmaceutical residua in our water. Simple to use, no plumbers or drilling. You just set it up on your counter, fill it up, plug it in, and that is it. And you have Cove Pure water. Your city may say the water's great, and that's fine. Flint's did too, that is. Cove Pure is what puts you back on track if you're concerned. Go to Cove Pure. That's COVEPURE.com/Drew right now and get a $250 off limited time offer. That is COVEPURE.com/Drew. And, make sure your family is safe and the water sources are safe that you use. Next up, Emily Jashinsky. As I said, you can follow her on X at her name. And she is also at the After Party and After Party. Emily, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
Good to see you. I'm guessing you're spending your day talking about SPLC.
Yes. And, I was going to say unfortunately, but in this case, it's really fortunate that finally so many of these details are coming to light.
Well, you wrote an article, I think a Substack in 2017, bringing some of this to the fore. And I have to admit, if I read it back then, I would have been, maybe conspiracy theory. It seems too much, too on the nose. It's hard to believe. And I think this investigation and the fact that a grand jury has issued these indictments pretty much blows the lid off things, does it not?
Yeah, and what the grand jury returned to that indictment yesterday from the DOJ is really shocking because actually nobody really had evidence. And this was a minor suspicion about the SPLC that was mostly relegated to people who follow the story really closely, that perhaps they were, like the government has often done, unfortunately, funding informants to infiltrate some of the events and groups that the SPLC was then turning around and funding off of. But conservatives for years, I was at the Washington Examiner back in 2017 writing about them going after mainstream conservative groups. They went after Ayaan Hirsi Ali for criticizing Islam over and over again. They were going after groups that were, for example, hawkish on immigration, traditional values, Christian groups that opposed gay marriage, and then putting them on hate watch lists alongside KKK groups and neo-Nazi groups. So on the right, the SPLC has been a huge thorn in everybody's side for many, many years. I mean, they've hampered fundraising efforts. They have maligned and marginalized normal conservatives. But what we did not know is that they were actually actively, allegedly, we should say. I mean, I have the indictment right here in my hands. I've gone through every page of it. It's pretty detailed. It looks like the Department of Justice has ample bank evidence that this is what they were doing. They were funneling money to things like the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Joe Biden said that was part of the reason he ran for president. They were funneling money to organizers of these events, to the National Alliance, some really, really, really ugly groups, fundraising off of boosting those efforts. They created shell accounts, according to the Department of Justice, to send informants. I mean, I counted 9 different informants in the indictment. It says these are at least the types of informants, or the list of informants that were being paid by the SPLC, and then fear-mongered about racism and hatred rising in America. When, by the way, we have ample social science research that shows going back decades, America has gotten much less racist, much more tolerant. What the SPLC was doing was just hitting the country against itself, convincing the media that conservatives were hateful, and then fundraising off of it.
Well, then the media then jumped on it and used it as some sort of benchmark. Thus saith the Lord. It's from the SPLC. And then number 2, the politicians were egregious in their use of it. As you said, Joe Biden used the Charlottesville hoax. There was a hoax on a hoax, right? The hoax was President Trump said, fine people. The fine people hoax that was built on an event that seems to have been sponsored and muscled by the SPLC. And in fact, there's some evidence that this thing was manufactured. When you watch it, you watch those guys in the khakis with their mask and their flags. Like people are like, who are these guys? Where'd they come from? Somebody's paying them to be there. But it's looking like that might have been the SPLC.
Yeah, no, truly. I mean, at least one of the people at Unite the Right, according to this indictment, was actively taking money from the SPLC. It was under their supervision, organizing the event, making racist posts. That's under the supervision is the word that is actually from the indictment. That's the phrase in the indictment. And then coordinating travel to the event. Now, we will always, unfortunately, have racism and bigotry with us, but this is a remarkable country full of so many people from different backgrounds. An experiment like the American experiment has just never existed, let alone this successfully in human history, where so many people from different religions and races live so close together. We will always have racism with us, but it is an enormous accomplishment of the American people that we have overcome so many negative sentiments about our fellow Americans, and in a relatively short period of time. So what the SPLC appears to have done earlier in the history, they were fighting the remnants of Jim Crow, legitimate hateful organizations like the KKK and the like. And as racism declined in America, they were apparently making up racism, blowing it up into a bigger issue than it actually was, trying to make it more visible, which is so sick and divisive.
So it's not, this is what I think needs to be emphasized. And I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not merely infiltration of these organizations so you get information about hate groups. It's using these hate groups to create media events that the politicians and the media then use as evidence of this widespread issue.
Yes, the Southern Poverty Law Center was perhaps the biggest nonprofit benefactor of the Unite the Right rally. Tim Cook George Clooney, JP Morgan Chase, all made PR stunts sending their money, Apple, to the SPLC, encouraging people to donate to the SPLC. They were covered in the media ad nauseum after Unite the Right. Everything. They were putting up the SPLC hate watch lists, the maps that they have over and over again, which, by the way, again, included some absolutely non-hateful groups, Alliance Defending Freedom. I think the Heritage Foundation was caught in their crosshairs at one point, Turning Point USA, blowing up the definition of what is hate and bigotry and racism. And then apparently actually funding the real racists and the real bigots and the real haters. Now, what the government is going to have to prove is that the SPLC was really supervising this and that these weren't rogue actors. What I'm looking at in this indictment in terms of bank statements and the evidence that the government has advanced looks pretty strong, that they can say that, the SPLC created these shell organizations to pass the funds to these people who were actively in racist neo-Nazi organizations. But they do have to prove that. It's looking like a good case. We'll see what comes.
Am I right that the entire compliance department quit like a month ago or so for SPLC, like in preparation for this?
I hadn't seen that. It wouldn't surprise me. This happened. So Morris Dees is the man who led the SPLC for many years, and he got caught up in some really, really bad allegations in 2019, and a bunch of the organization quit back then. I went back and pulled their most recent 990 report. They still had $822 million in total assets and netted $132 million in revenue. For a nonprofit, those are unbelievable, astronomical numbers as of last year. So they've had hiccups in the last decade as the grift has been exposed steadily. It wouldn't surprise me if the compliance department quit. They've had waves of quitting before.
And you mentioned that people were suspicious that something like this was going on. Would you put yourself under the suspicious category or the certain this would one day be exposed?
I did not suspect the SPLC itself of being behind this. And I'm genuinely shocked by the DOJ's evidence that they laid out, seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, again, conservatives were mostly focused on, first of all, the SPLC's terrible fundraising practices, just fear-mongering with direct mail campaigns aimed at the elderly that are totally blowing up, just really gross stuff. And then secondly, the way that they were expanding the definition of hatred and bigotry to suppress and marginalize normal conservatives, I did not think that the SPLC would be this dumb, because this stuff always catches up with you. The DOJ indictment says this is going back to the 80s.
Wow. I mean, that's sort of what my take is too. Like, what? How could they? This is insane. But it seems like this has been going on so long, it's like a drug addict or something. They eventually just get sloppier and sloppier and sloppier until somebody finds out. You know what I mean? It's that kind of behavior. But Caleb, you want to share this one story about somebody stealing documents for the SPLC for $1 million. This is an interesting story.
The wildest one that I saw. A guy named Patrick Casey posted this on X. He's going through the documents, and he says the SPLC paid a member of the National Alliance a total of over $1 million. And this is the same guy who allegedly went into the headquarters of an entirely different supremacist group, stole 25 boxes of documents, brought it back to some high-ranking person over at the SPLC who obviously knew what was going on. That guy at the SPLC allegedly copied the documents, gave it back so he could return it. Then they paid a different informant $6,000 to take the fall for it so that the first guy wouldn't be blamed. So this is a web of stuff going on in the background here.
That's straight out of the indictment. And again, they have bank records. So what the SPLC, which is denying all of this, is going to have to argue is this is just coincidental. They had nothing to do with these informants continuing to make racist posts, continuing to, in this case, steal documents, infiltrate other groups. But stories like this one, highlighted here, show it looks pretty obviously like the informants were all on particular missions. And that gets us back to the Unite the Right rally, one of the most high-profile examples of this, when you have the allegation from the DOJ that they were coordinating travel, paying people who were part of the organizing of this. That starts to look like an indisputable pattern. So from my reading of this, the DOJ's case is very, very strong.
Yeah. And let's quickly, the fleeting minutes that we have, I want to switch to California and the California corruption and the decay here. We have a congresswoman that wants to be well into her 90s, is sitting in the chair here in South Los Angeles. I mean, she's quite healthy and spry for an 87-year-old, but is that a good idea? Should we have age limits? What do we do with this?
Democrats just had another member, sadly, die in office in the last 24 hours out of Georgia. Somebody that reportedly, now it comes out, people were concerned about and wanted to kind of push out of the way and let someone younger, more capable take the reins. This is obviously it's a problem for both political parties. Democrats in particular have had a very hard time parting ways with some powerful members of their caucus in the House, particularly in the House. Also, there was Dianne Feinstein in the Senate. Lest we forget, but in the House, Maxine Waters, if Democrats retake the majority, which is expected to happen, she would be the head, likely, of the finance committee, like hugely powerful, overseeing crypto at this moment, banks, all of that would be under the purview of somebody well into their late 80s, and then eventually probably 90 by the end of that 2-year term. So depending on when her birthday is. So it's utterly crazy that Democrats can't let go of people like Maxine Waters. They just don't have the guts to stand up to her.
I worry that it's a general problem with gerontocracy in this country. People well beyond an age that they should be in these gigantically powerful positions clinging to them. If I were a young person, I would be really concerned about that. And it has many different sort of facets to it, whether it's hanging on to assets or hanging on to jobs, whatever it might be. We should be bringing up, cultivating younger folks. Call me crazy. Anyway, finally, I'm wondering your thoughts on Tucker Carlson. He made a claim that Sharia law made Islamic societies more advanced. And than Western societies, or something like that. There was some sort of allegation like that. And it's interesting though to just dampen that claim a little bit. I was talking to someone, who was it? A physician colleagues whose parents were in Iran during the revolution. They were middle class, upper middle class families. They were supporters of the Shah, but they thought the revolution was a good idea at the time. Obviously, they are fled to the United States, have no such illusions presently. But she described to me how at the time they were like, these mullahs are the learned people in our society. It will be a bureaucratic meritocracy where these learned, well-meaning men will guide us in our country in a way that's for the benefit of the people. Yeah, sure. What did Tucker mean? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I've seen some of his quotes on Islam recently being taken out of context. I don't particularly know the bigger picture of this one. The version of the argument he often makes is that Western decadence, which is in a way what some of the people who were part of the original revolution were agitating against in Iran by bringing in the mullahs at the time, but that Western decadence has made our cities dirty and dangerous and shameful. So it's possible that's the line of attack that he was going off. There's a lot of suspicion right now about why Tucker seems to be favorable toward Islam. I will say he has been speaking mostly as a Christian recently, horrified by how he's seen some people on his own side start to really launch bigoted attacks since the war in Iran began. I maybe have a different take than him on some of this stuff, but it is hard to argue that the kind of small L liberalism in some of these blue cities, and this, Drew, like in LA, has gone so far. The concept of like personal autonomy and freedom has gone so far that we don't lock up people anymore that clearly desperately need mental help or need to be incarcerated.
Yes.
So it may have been that's the argument he was making. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, I would argue that's not a function of liberalism or an open society. That is a function of dumb policy, horrible leadership, lack of governance, and in the place of governance, representing. People have given up on governing and now want to just represent. What are you doing? I'm representing. Oh, I'm got a place at the table. I'm standing up. Well, I had to stand up when I saw the what did Biden say over and over again when the guys with the torches with the bloodshot eyes were coming out of the woods. I had to stand up, and it's like these crazy images that were brought forward, hoax upon hoax, time after time. Just. I don't know. And again, much has been revealed, let's put it that way. And it seems as though this is not stopping, that it's going only one direction, which is more and more lies, fraud, misappropriation, and generally bad behavior that needs to be corrected. We have to correct course. And that is not a function of being an open society. I'm sorry. I mean, there'll be bad people in closed societies too, trust me. That's one of the unfortunate aspects of the human experience. We trust each other to, lead and go into positions of authority and whatnot. Inevitably, there's issues around that. There has always been. Emily, where can people find you?
Anywhere that is social media. I'm just at Emily Jashinsky. You can find me there. After Party Emily YouTube channel with MK Media. We're live Mondays and Wednesdays, so we'll be live later tonight.
I'm just guessing that Megan was going, I didn't see her show today. She was going off on this particular issue and that you'll be discussing it as well there.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be discussing it. She had Russell Brand on today, and they got into it for sure.
Oh, good. Oh, interesting. Excellent. Yep. Emily, thank you for being here. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Drew.
And Russell's going to join us here in studio, and so is Dave Rubin. That's all coming up. Maybe we can do that stuff on our upcoming calendar there. Let's see. That's on May 13th. Dave Rubin on the 12th, so they'll be back-to-back. Scott Atlas, Jonathan Turley, oh my God, May 7th. What a crazy, incredibly powerful show that's going to be. Kira Davis is going to sit in for me. Herb Morgan and Julie Hamill will be on Tuesday. And then if I don't make it back by Thursday, right. Oh, is that Wednesday? That must be Wednesday. Wednesday is the 30th. The 29th is Wednesday. Thursday. We're still, I'm hoping to get back by then. I guess, are we skipping Tuesday altogether?
Yes.
Okay, we're skipping Tuesday. The Kira Davis show is Wednesday. The Kelly or my return will be Thursday, and then we return to our usual schedule the following week. So we appreciate you all being here. We appreciate Melanie for calling in today. I will try to take more calls as we go along. And I have the... what do you call it? The embarrassment of riches when it comes to our guests. And I'm so interested in the guests that Emily Barsh has booked for us, one of our crack producers, that I just get into the interview, and there's not that much time left for calls. So we will try to take more calls generally as we go forward.
Need to call in.
And we appreciate you when you do. Let me quickly examine the rants.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron Howell. Appreciate that. And then over on the restream, let's see. Thank you. A lot of thanks there. We appreciate it, you guys. We appreciate you as well.
No, thank you.
Diane Feinstein was a dinosaur. Go ahead.
So, nobody ever would have expected, or at least I never expected SPLC to have an indictment like this of such a large scale. Do you think that any of the medical associations might have some skeletons in their closet as it relates to the pandemic that might be coming out at some point in a similar way?
Let's think about that. Because the medical societies themselves have little or no authority. They're just kind of lobby groups. People don't understand. American Medical Association, very few doctors belong to that anymore, and they serve zero function. They publish a magazine, they do some lobbying in Washington, that's about it. What we rely on is our individual professional societies, American Board of Addiction Medicine, American College of Physicians, American College of Cardiologists. You've heard about ACOG, American College of Obstetrician Gynecologists. Those are very involved in sort of high standing, how to maintain the highest standards for their particular zone of the discipline of medicine. But they took some weird positions during COVID, but they didn't do anything. So it's hard for me it was the government and the social media organizations and the media generally that did stuff to people. And while the professional organizations might have blown wind into the sails, I could argue that the state medical boards, which is again government, there may be something there in terms of the excesses. I could see where people could sort of successfully sue the medical boards for some of the excesses, like Mary Tally Bowden in Texas. I mean, she may have
or
some
the WHO, like
things
something
we know,
up there,
you know,
maybe.
Yeah, there's going to be stuff there for sure. But again, these are all, people don't understand, these are all things that aren't related to the practice of medicine. When I was teaching medicine, at no point did I ever say, you know, what does the World Health Organization say about this? What does the FDA say about this? No, it's not involved. We're not involved in medicine. We're within ourselves a discipline, and these organizations on the outside are typically advisory, and they've never really been actively involved. They now have gotten themselves involved, and that needs to be undone somehow. And it's the government that really gave them their teeth. All right, we appreciate you being here again. The number, if you do come around, is 833-3-DRDREW, and I will be back hopefully on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. And do tune in on Wednesday, though, when Kira Davis takes over for me. Thanks for being here. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.